Hey there, everybody. Welcome. I am so glad that you're here and with us today. We're going to spend some time together in real conversation about coaching, about leadership, and what organizations are navigating right now in the coaching world. My hope is that this feels less formal and more relaxed and a great, honest dialogue where we can learn from each other, hear different perspectives, and maybe even leave with a few questions, little good nuggets to think about. We have an incredible group of panelists with us today, and each bring a unique experience and unique insight to this conversation. I'm really excited for you to hear from them. So let's just dive right in and give them an opportunity to tell you a little bit about them.
Hey everyone, I'm Jen. So nice to be here. So thanks for inviting me to this. A little bit about me. I'm going to do a little background. So I'm actually a CPA. I worked in the corporate world for a number of years. I worked in a tech startup. We scaled it from 40 to 400, left that during the pandemic, and then I moved into coaching. I also was a yoga teacher. I should mention that. Anyways, found coaching. I've been coaching for the last couple of years. I run two companies now, the practice space, which is mine, and it's really just working with visionaries and people who are trying to get really clear on their values and what they want. And Alt Leadership Group, which I run with a friend of mine, and it's all corporate coaching and so fascinated by organizational coaching, leadership, all of it. So thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aline Gabriel. I am in the San Francisco East Bay area. I'm excited to be here because I love these kind of conversations. I've had my coaching practice almost a decade now. I was also in the corporate space beforehand, and I'm a big community builder. So I like to come together with people really anytime, but especially for conversations like this or around other things that just aren't out there as often. So I love being in these rooms and these spaces. I'm just really delighted to be here today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for taking the time. We appreciate it.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tommy English, and I'm located in Houston, Texas. And I'm excited to be here. I am the founder of Intentional Coaching. Most people can't spell it, but it's authentic and intentional coaching. And I started coaching when I left the corporate sector. I was in banking for about 19 plus years. I've been in nonprofit, all in leadership roles. And when I left, I said I wanted to become a coach, and COVID happened. And so it was perfect timing to go get my certification and become an executive coach, where I love working with high performing and top performing leaders and dealing with some of the issues that we're going to be talking about today. And I love coming together with other coaches and having the opportunity to share what we're hearing and what we're learning. So thank you for inviting me to this.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. This is going to be a great conversation, and you are correct. We're going to be talking about some great things today. So, you know what? Let's just jump in, shall we? The first question I want to ask is kind of it's more of a broad overview. Let's just start with a big picture question. As organizations sit down and plan for the rest of 2026, the first part of this question is more about what do you think coaching really is prioritizing? Like, what are the urgent needs in the realm of coaching that organizations would bubble up to the surface and say, yeah, we got to focus on that? And then comparatively speaking, what's changing compared to just a few years ago? If you were to think about 2023, 2022, and then think about today, would those same urgent needs be there, or are we making a shift in the coaching industry?
I mean, I'll start. I do see a shift in the coaching industry. I think back to years ago, most of the time when I got somebody who needed coaching, it was, we're working on their executive presence and what that means. And we can talk about what that means. Or we're working on making sure that they show up with confidence, which are still issues. But what's changing and what I see is most urgent now as we look at leaders and look at people who are seeking coaching is burnout and feeling overwhelmed and feeling like there's more work and less time to devote to strategic thinking, to devote to having less demands on their time, and trying to figure out how to navigate the political landscape within organizations. I'm seeing that more and more coming up as more prevalent than what used to traditionally come up in coaching conversations.
How about you guys? What do you think?
I'd say I have some similar overlap in what Tommy was just saying in the shift, the burnout and overwhelm. I'm finding sort of related to that is all the uncertainty that is coming up now in so many facets. The economy, the world around us, the way businesses run, what they need in order to innovate and have a forward trajectory. So I think now a lot of the conversations come down to how can people be better equipped internally to adapt and flex and feel some groundedness in the midst of environments that they have far less control over than they thought they did, and even more so than before. I think it used to be more about with teams having really strong performing great teams, and it was about things like what are the strengths on the team and how do they work together well, and systems and operations a little bit more so. So I think we're moving a little bit more from what used to be a sort of tactical work that we would do with folks and into a place of how do we exist in a world that no one has really experienced before.
Yeah, I would completely agree with Aileen and Tommy. So I was going to say something similar, but I'll add something a little different too. Is I think the world is completely different than it was a few years ago. And there is so much noise coming from so many different places that a lot of it also comes down to focus. And so I think a lot of leaders that I work with are just overwhelmed because they don't know what to prioritize, how to prioritize, or even, they create these plans for 2026. And when you said that word, I started laughing because I'm like, I bet you it's going to look different in 3 months, just because of the landscape that we're currently in. And so I think that's what I'm seeing a lot more in the coaching is it's a lot more about focus, and just trying to clear the noise.
That actually leads me beautifully into the next question because hearing all of you, it sounds like organizations could really benefit from coaching now more than ever, in my opinion. Uh, when when coaches, coaching groups, teams go to an organization and say, "Wow, you really could use coaching; could be so beneficial for you." There is a pressure to show results. Organizations, how I don't know if we want to invest in this. I don't know if it's worth it. Now, having listened to the three of you with the first question, I'm thinking of course coaching could be amazing in this environment, but that's my opinion. So how can coaching leaders genuinely demonstrate an ROI in a meaningful way without reducing coaching to just numbers and metrics? If they are trying to say, hey, coaching could be such a benefit. Here's a potential ROI. Here's the metrics of what could happen if you allow coaching to be part of your organization. But we don't want to reduce it to the numbers, right? So what's the balance there between providing a quality ROI and keeping it away from being just about numbers and metrics?
I think this is a really challenging question because businesses are built on numbers. And I do think that there are numbers kind of out there that people have used about retention and turnover and happiness, et cetera. The way I think about sort of that other intangible piece, there's someone who I follow, his name is Derek Sivers, and he has this saying that I think about all the time, which is if it were just about information, we'd all be billionaires with six-pack abs. Yeah. And I think any leader can relate to the idea that if you're wanting to scale, do marketing differently, have better products, whatever, there's information out there. You can get it. So the hurdles are not strictly about information that's out there and available. It's something that they haven't tapped into. And I think any individual person can identify with the feeling of, gosh, my health isn't what I want it to be. My relationships aren't what I want it to be. My social life isn't what I want it to be. And yet I know how to do those things, but I'm not. And the difference between what seems very rational and just the sort of irrational way in which humans live and exist together that can't be explained and can't be codified by numbers in a spreadsheet.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with you, Aline. And I mean, when somebody comes into a coaching environment, they already know the numbers. They already have the metrics that they bottom line. You got to achieve the results. But I think as organizations are sending more leaders into coaching, it's really about what are those supporting attributes, those values. That what does a development plan look like that would be a success for that leader? And the return on investments might be, hey, how do we help them to align better with the values of the organization? How do we help them to align better with the competencies that are important to the organization? And what do those look like? And it's not really packed into a number, but a behavior, an outcome that everybody can see. And that's one of the questions I'll ask my clients is we're doing a check-in is what have other people observed in you, right? To see the benefit and see the difference in having a coaching relationship.
Yeah, so I love this question because I'm a finance person, and as a coach, this is something that I'm always thinking about is the ROI. And so there's a couple things that I've been kind of playing with because like I agree with what Aileen was saying is like you don't want to blow out the art of coaching because that's so important, I think. And I think that is actually the magic and the special sauce. And I also understand organizations have numbers and they want to prove that, when they're investing lots of money in coaching, that they're seeing something, a little more tangible from it. And so one of the things actually that I learned from Dominique Mass, who is she's the CEO of Group Coaching HQ. She talked to us about doing something like surveys throughout. And so you figure out like what are some of the goals. So you have to align obviously on those ahead of time with the company and figure out like how you're going to measure. And then kind of what I do is so I'll include things throughout. So something before, something during, and then normally something after, and then sometimes like super after, like as in 30 days after, 90 days after, 6 months after. And this also just gives us really data to see like what's working, what's not working. And I found that to be incredibly helpful. So
Yeah, I love that. And you can also make sure you're doing, a lot of organizations are doing the 360 surveys as well to get feedback, not only from their manager, but from their directs, from their peers, and then doing a self survey as well. And then going back, I love it when we're able to do that and then go back and see what is the difference. And again, what are the observable behaviors, values, and competencies that you've seen grow and strengthen as a result of coaching?
yeah, I just want to add to that, Tommy, because yeah, I think that's such an important part of it because, what I've heard is like, I don't actually know where this comes from, but I think it's like something with adult learning. Like it takes 6 months for people to even see that there's changes happening in organizations. And so I love, Tommy, that it's like bringing people into it to give some feedback because you want them to see that they are noticing some of these changes and it does take time. So.
Awesome. What a great conversation. So I'm going to have this next question. I'm going to kind of tie back into the first question. So I'm going to, I think Jen, you're the one who said it's funny because we think that, 2026 and everything's going to change within 3 months. The piece of the world that I believe is evolving faster than absolutely anything is AI. So this next question is AI related. And here's what we're going to tackle with this one. Because as AI becomes more common in the workplace, what parts of coaching process, not the coach person, but the coaching process, how can it genuinely utilize AI as a tool? And how could AI help in a coaching process? But what still needs the human touch? I believe there's got to be some kind of balance there. I'm curious what you guys think about that.
Yeah, another question I love. I'm like so into the AI space and trying to solve this because like this is a reality for us coaches, right? Of trying to figure out what do we do? AI is clearly not going anywhere. And so the way that I've seen it now, I don't know, right? Because we don't know what we don't know about AI, and I don't know how, what it will be like in a few years. But how I'm seeing it right now is that AI is a really great place for clients to brainstorm and to get really clear before walking into a coaching session or even afterwards. And so I have a lot of clients who actually will like say, hey, here's a framework that I built using ChatGPT. Can we talk about this in our session? I'm like, absolutely. And so like, I think it has a really good use case for that. It's like the in-between sessions. And then the other place is for the human touch is I find what AI is lacking at its current state is stickiness. So as a human coach, we are able to help create depth and stickiness and accountability and just like add this layer of humanness that's kind of hard to put into words. But there is that, I like the word sticky because I think it just like, again, it adds that stickiness to what we're doing. So it actually has a landing place. And so that's currently where I'm seeing it.
Mm-hmm. I love that, that stickiness part. I smile when you bring up AI because sometimes I think when people go into Chat GPT or Claude or whatever, it's a great resource, it's a great tool, but it can also be overwhelming, right? Because it gives you so much and so many options. And that's where I think, you need that human touch in order to talk about all the options that have been presented out there and to make sure that as you're using it, you're putting in the right prompts and asking the right questions so that you can get the right recommendations, right? But even when you do that, you need somebody to talk through it with. So I don't think you can replace the human touch of having a coach there. And I use it too when I'm stuck. When I have a situation and I want to know, I listen to a lot of podcasts, I read a lot of books, I have a lot of frameworks. What are there new frameworks out here based on this situation? What are some options? But I try to make sure I narrow it down so that I don't get overwhelmed, because you don't want to overwhelm your client either with too many options. And that's just my about AI is the overwhelming part. I'll stop there.
I really appreciate what you're both saying. And I think with AI, there's an interesting dichotomy of people who look at it with fear and concern and push back, and those who say, this is another tool. Now it's a wild tool at a scale we've not seen before, but so was the internet and email and other things too, right? At that time. So I think one, kind of having a mindset around that can be helpful in terms of how to think about something like this. And I agree with both of you that I think it can be great for kind of brainstorming, having more options. When it comes, in coaching, we're helping the person explore what's in them already and then test out things that might help them move forward. They can iterate for hours and hours upon hours and hours about, oh, this idea and what's the next step, or how about like that, but less of this, and they can just do that. And what I think it's still missing is, and who knows where AI could grow to, but in this moment, I find at least some of my particular gift that I bring to my clients is that I hear things that they are not saying. And I think mostly AI, and this could also be my dearth of experience, is based on what you're telling it, and it's a predictive model. So if it's not looking at what you're not telling it, unless you sort of specifically prompt it and ask it to then model out what you might not be saying, but people don't know how to quite use it that way necessarily. Mm-hmm. And the other thing I think is, for the most part, we still understand AIs are machines. They are technology and machinery. And there's something, I think, innate about our need as humans. We are a tribal species that wants to be with other people, that wants to feel that somebody cares about what we're going through and our progress, that a machine can say, good for you, good job doing that, and way to go, and you're doing great. People still know that that's a machine. And I think there's something deep within all of us that needs to know that we matter to other humans.
And I love what you said, Eileen, because it can't pick up like we can pick up here looking at each other. I'm noticing something. I'm seeing something. I'm hearing something. Like you said, we're only putting in what we think it needs to know, and it can't pick up those intangibles that it doesn't know. So it's a great tool, but I don't think that it can ever replace the human touch and human interaction.
Absolutely. I agree 1000%. Thank you all so much. What wonderful insights. I believe the panels I've led so far, AI has been at least one question in every single one because it really is becoming a tool that's utilized a lot. I'm not opposed to using it as a tool, but I agree. I don't think it could ever replace the human touch. I love that. Thank you. We're going to keep on the theme of human touch for a second, and we're going to lean into something that I actually talked when I was getting trained years ago, getting my certifications in coaching. This came up quite a bit in the conversation with my colleagues who were fellow students, if you will, who were working on our certifications, and that is imposter syndrome. So here's the question I want us to kind of wrestle with today, and I would love to hear your feedback. Many professionals, not just coaches, professionals in general, they struggle with their confidence. They deem themselves as having imposter syndrome, or they have a really not very nice inner critic. Where do you see coaching making the biggest difference in helping people who are struggling with these things move forward?
I think you said the key. Um, Coaching is forward thinking, right? And so we really work to help, our clients think future forward. And sometimes it's helpful to reach back and see, where did that inner critic come from? What's the story that you're telling yourself? Is that real? Is that true? And sometimes it is real, and sometimes it is true, but how is it serving you? Right? And is it making you feel good about what you're moving toward, or is it holding you back? Right? And so, and even the most biggest achievement leaders, no matter how much they've excelled in an organization. I heard a managing director of an accounting company come in and speak to a group of directors and say that he had been an insecure achiever all of his life, throughout his whole career. And he was getting ready to retire and was very high up in that organization. And when I heard that, I was like, okay, then that's imposter syndrome. That's the inner critic. But somehow or another, he had learned to make it work for him. And usually I tell people, it's always with some of us in some kind of way. So how do we turn it down so we can embrace, our strengths, embrace our inner champion, and hear that more? So those are my thoughts.
I think that's a lot of what it is, Tommy. And the other thing I think is, ultimately, imposter syndrome is a story. It's a story that we have that says, I'm not good enough for this. I can't do this. People are going to find out. And underneath, like that's the thing that needs to be dealt with. Not usually it's not actually about their level of capacity. And if it is, sometimes there's a very distinct question of, well, what do you need to do in order to get ready and do this thing? Do you need to enroll in a course? Do you need some practice round? Whatever that is. But it's the story about it that people carry. And I think, like other things, there's a bit of there's shame to it. And if that stays inside and they don't talk it out, it sort of grows and multiplies, and then it starts to impact their behavior. And so simply talking it through with another human that can help hold that mirror up and say, this is what I'm hearing you say, which doesn't match with reality. I mean, Tommy, you talking about that executive who's had this great career, the mirror does not show that, right? But they need to be able to see that. And I think, again, there's this sort of human connection of, I see you, you're getting way up here in this story, and that's not real. Let's come back down to earth. And I think that's really the crucial part. And they just need a person to pluck them out of sort of the obscurity of the vacuum of their mind and get them back on the ground, like, oh, okay. Like, do you see this big spaceship? No, that's just me. Okay, maybe there isn't a spaceship here, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I love what you both already said about this. I think, I think coaching, that's what coaching does, right? It helps us get more self-aware. And so I think the stronger our self-awareness is around our values and how we want to be and who we are, I think all of those things become more unshakable. And the other thing I want to add is, I also found personally is, the more that I know about myself, the more I can also express my own needs better, the more I can express those things to other people. And so I think when it comes to like imposter syndrome and confidence in the workplace, it's being able to talk to your manager and actually set expectations, and figure out like maybe there's a confidence issue because they don't think they're doing a good job. But maybe if they have words and are able to articulate it because they've been working with their coach and they realize, oh, like I can actually talk about these things. Oh, I can actually, ask for feedback or whatever it is. It just gives them, I think, more confidence to actually have some of these conversations with other people who may be sort of impacting that confidence or imposter syndrome, or that's sort of like creating those stories. And so they start to realize that those are just stories.
Yeah, I like that. I often ask, like, what are you really good at? I mean, what do you know for sure that you're good at? And getting them to articulate that instead of focusing on that inner critic or that feeling of imposterism. What is it that you know for sure? And sometimes it's a challenge to get it out. Like, okay, you know that for sure. Your challenge, should you decide to take it, is go and talk that out aloud. Get out of your head and talk it out aloud until you start to feel it, right? And believe it more. And again, you can turn down that playlist that's playing in your head, the inner critic.
I want to add one thing, because if you've ever used Chat GPT or any of the AI platforms, man, they tell me I hung the moon. And if I mean, of course, maybe I'm not asking the right prompts, but they do like to tell me that, oh, you're so right on there, Monica. And oh, you're so great. And so it's this kind of faux pat on the back, if you will. Oh, excuse me, I hit my mic. But humans, though, like a coach, we don't tell the person they're all that in a bag of chips. We hold up, I love that. We hold up the mirror, because you're not going to believe that you are good enough unless you come to that conclusion that you are good enough. We can tell them that all day, every day, and Monday. But Chat GPT can tell them all day, every day. But I don't think Chat GPT is that mirror. I don't think AI can provide that same guidance that a human can. So I've really enjoyed that exchange. Thank you for that. And before I move to the next question, did you guys have anything else you want to say about that?
I just want to tie something, Monica, you and Tommy have both said. Tommy, I love the question you asked, what are you good at? What are your strengths, for them to get connected? Sometimes what I'll ask is, why do you think you got hired? Why do you think they promoted you? And because, again, the story they have is a story, and they're under the influence of the feelings of that story, which is fear, anger, whatever that might be. And if you can ask them to step out of it and say, well, why did I get hired? Well, because I have this background, I have this skill, I have this expertise, I know I'm a good decision maker, whatever that might be, they can start to talk themselves away from the influx of feelings that accompany the story. And to your point, Monica, Chat GPT is sort of built as a people pleaser unless you prompt it to poke holes or challenge you specifically, which you could. But, helping them, again, get down to what they actually already know that takes them out of a made up story is really important. And we're there to identify when they're in a story versus when they're really in their self-knowing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And really helping them to, again, we're focused on going forward, but sometimes it may have been something that came from childhood. It could have been something that came from a teacher or whatever, that story is still playing in their head. And so instead of reaching for something resourceful from their past, they're constantly going back to something that was painful or remorseful, and so that happened. I think Brene Brown said that in Atlas of the Heart or whatever, that happened. How do you leave that there? Because it's not serving you. Every time you bring it with you, it brings you down, right? It keeps you from showing up fully and confidently the way you can. So that inner critic, that imposter feeling that you're bringing with you is not serving you, right? So it can cause burnout. It can cause physical illness. It can, even though you may be performing, you're not enjoying it the way you could. So how do you go back and reach for something that's a little bit more resourceful, right? It shows your resilience. Leave that other stuff over there and start to focus more on who you are and who you're being and becoming right now.
That's awesome. Thank you for letting me kind of divert a little bit there because this is a good conversation and it's things I've thought about as well. So thank you all. Very thoughtful. I want to wrap us up with another broad stroke question. This is super open-ended, but I think because you all three kind of bring something unique to the table, this would be really good to hear these answers and a discussion from this. So looking ahead, what will separate effective coaches and coaching cultures from those that get left behind in the next few years? So, what will separate effective coaches and coaching cultures from those that get left behind in the next few years?
I can start us off. I think we're really making a trend towards like community and humanity in some ways. I mean, as I just said that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can think of so many examples of how that's not true. But I'm going to stick with that thread, which is I do think people are craving more community and humanity right now. And so I think what I'm seeing in organizations that are adopting more coaching cultures is they're having better conversations, they're having better relationships. And so they're actually able to get more done, more results with less things, which I think is really, really important right now. And they're doing it with happier people, which is always a good thing. And so, and I think for coaches, I think, with that same thread, I think it's really about co-creating things. So as coaches, I think our job is partnering with our clients, whether that's the, company that's hired us or our actual client. And so just again, we're in a way teachers, but like we're coaches, but we're modeling what coaching is like, and then they see that, and then sometimes start implementing that into different places of their life too. And so I just think there's something that's very different when you start thinking coach like, because you become more curious, you ask questions, you listen, you hold space, you stop advice giving, things like that. And I think those are all just really great tools for everybody. And so that's kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I have to really plus one a lot of that, Jen. I would say it's about relationships and connection, which I think is very much what you were just saying. And I think more and more, especially after the era where we were isolated from one another and away from each other, people are really longing for that. We've been on Zoom and it is super functional and wonderful. And now people just really want to actually be together in person also. And I think there's been a rise in entrepreneurship and people starting small businesses and opening small things, or gig economy, doing things on their own because they don't want to be in these corporations or organizations that don't treat them like humans, that don't actually have relationships with them and connections. And so I think if people don't modify the way that they're working with each other, people are going to leave. They're going to recongregate because they're going to find other people who've left and miss being with people or have similar ideas or want to work together. And so I think there's going to be a real reshuffling that happens too, and a lot less willingness to be with people who won't treat each other as humans and being in a relationship with one another.
I love it. Love what each of you have said. I thought about an acronym that I heard in an ICF meeting about how people want to be sure. But it's not the SURE, it's the SHUR. That people want to make sure that they feel seen, that they're being heard, that they're understood, and that they're being respected. And I think the organizations and the coaching environments that focus on that, making sure that people have a sense of belonging and that they're sure are going to be more successful. And what I think about going into the future is those organizations who not only focus on the leader at the highest level, but focus on coaching throughout the whole organization are going to be more successful. Because like you were saying, Aline, the workforce is changing. And what we're willing to put up with and what we're willing to do to be retained in an environment where we don't feel like we don't feel like we belong and don't feel like we're being heard, the tolerance is lower. So I think the organizations that make the investment in coaching and the coaches that recognize that, hey, there's a culture thing going on here. If I'm coaching a leader and I'm hearing themes, then maybe it's not just that leader who needs some coaching. It may be a whole culture awareness and type of coaching environment that needs to happen within the organization. And I think that's what's going to be impactful.
I want to just tack on to that. I love the SHUR acronym. That is great. And I hear that a lot. I think also businesses misunderstand what that means. They take that to mean we need to sit there and spend all this time listening to everyone and everyone talk about their feelings, and that it becomes some sort of support group environment instead of a business. And that's a real mistake. It's a real mistake to think you can't disagree but still respect someone, or hear someone and understand them and still go a different way. So I think it's layering those things on, the seen, heard, understood, and respected, to how a business works, and infuse it. You don't have to change completely the dynamics unless it's a fully toxic place, but you can incorporate those into everyday life and systems and have shared language that you use, or methods of going about things that incorporate respect and understanding.
Okay.
Thank you guys so much. We have had such, in my opinion, a fantastic conversation. And I am so grateful that you chose to spend time with us on this panel. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Monica.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
We are grateful for your wisdom and your willingness to share it. And we would love for you to come back sometime. So keep your calendar open for us. And hey, those of you watching, we are so happy that you chose to watch this panel. We do these periodically, and make sure you are subscribing or following us. Follow us on LinkedIn and you'll get notified that we have another panel coming up. What wonderful guest we had today. Thank you all so much. And we look forward to seeing you at our next panel.
Thank you.
Thank you.